we're grateful to the Families SCN2A Foundation for having us back again this year. And for those of you I had the privilege of spending time with last fall in Seattle, it's very nice to see you again. And for those of you we have not yet met, it's nice to meet you. My name is Carolyn Hare. I'm the clinical director for Autism BrainNet. In that role, it's my primary responsibility to work with our donor families. I'm privileged or thrilled to be presenting alongside our scientific director for Autism BrainNet today, Dr. David Amaral. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi Carolyn, and thank you everybody. My name is David Amaral. I'm a professor at the UC Davis Mind Institute in Sacramento, California, and I'm also the scientific director of Autism BrainNet, and we're delighted to be able to tell you a little bit about that program today. So Carolyn will start by giving you an overview of what we're going to be doing.
So during our time together today, we'd really like to convey the importance of brain tissue donation and report back some important scientific advances as a result of the study of postmortem donated tissue. We'll share with you a little bit about our program structure, as well as what the donation process actually looks like. And finally, we'll talk about our very important donor family aftercare program. Dr. Amaral, I'll turn it back over to you.
We first wanted to talk a little bit about why postmortem brains are actually needed for advancing our understanding of autism. So historically, the analysis of postmortem brain tissue has really provided important advances in our understanding of other neurological disorders like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And in fact, those postmortem studies are what has led to many of the preventative measures that are being attempted or treatments that are being attempted for those diseases. We know that for neurodevelopmental disorders like autism, the brain is the primary organ that has been affected. And we also know that topics like MRI or EEG or blood-based genetics can provide us important information, but really to understand the cellular and molecular situation that leads to autism, we have to study postmortem brain tissue. I'm going to give you an example of some work from our own group here at the Mind Institute about how carrying out postmortem brain research can give us an understanding of what's going on in the behavior in autism. And I'm going to start by telling you a little story about anxiety and autism. It turns out for a long time, people have suspected that anxiety is an important condition that occurs along with autism in many people, but it was never really clear how pervasive this situation is. Well, we partnered with Connor Kearns, who's a young professor now at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, to carry out a study of subjects here at the Mind Institute. And we found a number of different results, but the major result is that while anxiety is found in 8% of typically developing children, that it is much more prominent in autism. And in fact, in our population of subjects here, children that are about 11 years old, we found that 69% of them had a diagnosis of anxiety. So the question is, what's causing anxiety in autism? And we've been focusing on a part of the brain called the amygdala. It's a very small structure that's located this reddish area that's shown here in what's called the temporal lobe of the brain. And there's been evidence for some time that the amygdala is really the danger detector of the brain. That it is monitoring what's going on in the environment. In this little cartoon, it's looking and it sees the snake, and then by identifying the snake as a danger, it signals the body to take an appropriate response, which would be to escape the snake. Well, as it turns out, the amygdala for some time has been known to be involved in autism, but we haven't really known exactly how it's been involved. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but what we found now, primarily by doing both MRI studies as well as analysis of postmortem brain tissue. And the analysis of the postmortem brain tissue has been spearheaded by Dr. Cindy Schumann, who is one of our directors that we'll get to in a few moments at Autism BrainNet. And what we found is that while you can see in the blue line here that there's actually a pretty protracted development of the amygdala in humans. Most parts of the brain are pretty much developed in humans by the time we're about 6 years old, even though there's more refinement that takes place after that. But the amygdala actually has a protracted growth and continues to develop actually into early adulthood. And what we found by actually counting neurons that's the primary cells of the brain in the amygdala, is that individuals with autism, their amygdala grows too fast, too early. There's too many neurons. And then ultimately, when we look at older individuals with autism, there's actually a smaller number of neurons. And we're beginning to think that this enhanced or altered trajectory of amygdala development actually may be the cause for these anxiety symptoms in autism. Of course, there's a lot more work that needs to be done, and we would like to be able to replicate this in a larger number of postmortem brains. But there was a real problem that we've identified as long as 10 years ago or more, that while in fields like Alzheimer's disease, where there have been tens of thousands of brains donated for postmortem research, in the field of autism research, there were really very few postmortem brains that had been donated. So there was not sufficient donation of material to support state-of-the-art science. That allowed us, or that gave us motivation to establish Autism BrainNet. And with the help of the Simons Foundation Autism Research Initiative, who are our primary funders, Autism BrainNet was officially launched in 2014. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Autism BrainNet, it really is a resource. It's a collaborative network that we've established to enable and facilitate the acquisition of postmortem brain tissue for research on ASD and other disorders. We don't carry out research per se, but what we're trying to do is build a resource that we can distribute to scientists around the country and around the world who are going to do state-of-the-art research in order to try and understand autism and all of its various ramifications. And really the goal is not only to understand autism, but to develop an understanding so that we can have more effective targets for treatment. And Carolyn is going to now tell you a little bit more about Autism BrainNet and the various partnerships that we've established.
Right. So in addition to our sort of internal collaborative network of repositories for the acquisition of postmortem brain tissue, we also want to develop partnerships with family and advocacy groups in the community to help them understand in a very sensitive and compassionate way the importance of brain tissue donation and the processes that we have in place for making donation go as smoothly and successfully as possible for our families. So this is our team. Our Autism BrainNet team consists of 3 sites in the United States and 2 international sites, one at Oxford University in the United Kingdom and the second at Douglas Bell Brain Bank in Montreal, Canada. So at each of our site, we have identified or have directors. The directors at each of the sites are leaders in the field of neuroscience, neuropathology, psychiatry, and of course in the study of neurodevelopmental disorders. In addition to the node directors, at each site we have a tissue coordinator, and they are experts in receiving and processing as well as distributing tissue in accordance with the standards that Autism BrainNet has developed. We, of course, also have a central administration, which is comprised of our scientific director, Dr. David Amaral, and our program administration assistant at UC Davis, that's Melissa Miller. And we have additional central administrative staff based with Safari, including Marta Benedetti, who is the managing director of Autism BrainNet, Lillian Acosta Sanchez, and Kayla McBride, who make up our outreach team, as well as myself and Nicole Coman, who are the clinical team for Autism BrainNet. So our community partners, we really are honored to support the scientific mission of so many different groups, including the Families SCN2A Foundation. You see some other community partners that we have listed here. Beyond our ability to serve as a repository for those groups, we have also partnered with the NIH Neurobiobank, and together we developed joint standards for processing and documenting the clinical information for donors so that researchers from around the world can expect the same quality of tissue and clinical information between our two programs. In addition, we partner with medical examiners, OPOs, and tissue banks to help us identify and refer potential donors to our program. And many of you may already be aware that Autism BrainNet, as a program of Safari, has two Safari partner sister programs in Spark and Searchlight. And we bring this up because we wanted to share with you an important update regarding especially our relationship with Simon's Searchlight. We're in the process of finalizing an information sharing agreement that we hope will really reduce the burden on donor families who have participated in Searchlight in the past, so that all of the medical and clinical assessment information obtained in Searchlight can be transferred to us at Autism BrainNet, thereby reducing the burden on our donor families. So I think this is very important information to share because many people question, what is the donation process like in the moment? What is it that I need to do as a parent, as a sibling, as a spouse, if a death occurs? And the most important thing that you can do is to call our toll-free 24/7 hotline, either when you realize that death is imminent or as soon as possible after a death has occurred. Ideally within 24 hours, but certainly we understand circumstances may necessitate calling a little bit outside that timeline. So when you call that number, you are immediately connected with one of our Autism BrainNet clinicians, typically myself, my coworker, who I identified before, Nicole Coman, and we're available to you to help talk you through the consenting process for brain tissue donation. And then we work with our tissue coordinators and community members to organize the logistics of donation. That typically happens behind the scenes, but certainly we answer any questions related to that our donor families might have. After we have consented our families and worked through the logistics of donation, that donation is transported or couriered to one of the 3 sites that we talked about before, the one that's closest to our donor. And then finally, after the donation has occurred, we spend a lot of time following up with our donor families. And the idea is that we want to learn as much about this person as possible so that we can provide that information, of course, without the identifiers to our researchers. In addition to the important clinical work that happens, it's very important to our team to provide appropriate bereavement support. And we do that really through the Donor Aftercare program. So the Donor Aftercare program has all of these different components that come into play at different times during the bereavement process. And of course, when it's appropriate for each donor family. Participation in this program is completely voluntary, but it's one of our main missions to provide appropriate support. So you can always expect to get a condolence letter from us, and We do want to provide also a token of remembrance, which is just a little memento that families can hold on to, physically, literally hold on to. And then we want to make sure that our donor families stay engaged with our program through our quarterly newsletter, which always includes an important scientific update. In addition to that, we have a Memories of Hope page where families often choose to post tributes about their loved one, just as a way to recognize their contribution and their legacy. And then finally, we do send out a card every year to let you know that we're thinking about you, and we are available sort of into the future anytime you'd like to connect with us for any reason. And I think one of the most important outcomes of the donor aftercare program is the relationship that we develop with our families. And so here are just some things that our donor families have shared with us about their experience working with the program and, of course, participating in that donor aftercare program. You'll see down at the bottom how much comfort the whole process can provide to our donor families. So saying it's been very comforting working with you. I thought this process would be really difficult, but we try to and often are able to make it easier than expected. And finally, while we appreciate and respect how intensely emotional this process can be, for some of our families, it actually becomes a celebratory experience. And so you'll see a quote there where we had a group of 5 sisters who wanted to get together and make a sister's weekend out of remembering their sister who is a donor to our program. And that was a really nice occasion. So David, I'll turn it over to you to close.
Well, thanks, Carolyn. And thank you for your attention, everyone. We hope that you have gained some knowledge about Autism BrainNet from this short presentation. If you'd like more information, please go to our website, autismbrainet.org. In fact, shortly after you see this presentation, we will be premiering a website update with hopefully a lot more information for you and easier to navigate. But there is information on all aspects of what we've talked about today, as well as interesting articles about how postmortem brain tissue has been used to advance our understanding of autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. So again, we hope you all stay safe and well. And again, thank you for your attention.